I was sitting on the living room sofa, flipping through a magazine, when my phone pinged with a new message. Opening it, I saw 3 photos. In the first, Ashley was wearing my custom silk robe. She had taken a selfie lying down in my bed. In the second, she was cuddling with Damien. Their faces were pressed together, and Damien was actually smiling at the camera. The third was the most brazen. She had secretly taken a profile shot of Damien sleeping. The bedding was the exclusive Egyptian cotton, with bespoke Italian lace that my mother-in-law had gifted us for our wedding. I stared at the photos for about 10 seconds, then closed the magazine, stood up, walked into my home office, and grabbed my backup phone. Was I angry? Of course I was, but in her 28 years, Catherine Sterling had learned one crucial lesson: never make decisions based on emotion. What was the point of sobbing and wailing? What was the point of rushing over there and throwing a tantrum? If he had the nerve to cheat, he'd deny it anyway. And Ashley had dared to send those photos specifically because she was counting on my hysteria. If I caused a scene, I'd lose. I would only win if I kept my cool. Using my second phone, I took screenshots of the entire text thread from start to finish, including the 3 photos, including her message that read, "Hey sis, he says you're basically a dead fish in bed," and including the timestamps and her account details. Then, I synced these screenshots to my secure cloud storage and saved a backup to an external drive. Once that was done, I called Sam. Sam was a former cop-turned-private investigator who used to help me gather corporate intelligence on business competitors. He worked clean and knew how to keep his mouth shut. He answered on the second ring. "Sam, I need a background check on someone," I said. "I'm listening, Mrs. Vance." The girl's name is Ashley. Early 20s. Likely works in some corporate office. That's all I have for now. But I have a photo. Sending it over. I need answers before dawn. I sent him Ashley's selfie. The photo was crystal clear. Her facial features, her figure, and her style were all fully visible. Sam replied with a single word. "Copy." He hung up. I walked back into the master bedroom. Damien wasn't home tonight. This morning, he had mentioned an important business dinner and said he'd be working late. Now it was perfectly clear what kind of dinner it was. He was dining right in Ashley's bed. I opened my closet. That specific silk robe was indeed missing. I had bought it last month at an exclusive, invite-only runway show during New York Fashion Week. It was a limited collection. Only 50 pieces existed in the world. At the time, Damien had criticized me for being a spendthrift, since the robe cost over $15,000. And now, it was draped over Ashley's shoulders. I closed the closet doors. It didn't matter. It was just a robe. Let's consider it a burial shroud I generously gifted her. At 11:00 p.m., Sam called back. "Mrs. Vance, I've got everything." The girl's name is Ashley Higgins, 26 years old. She's a junior specialist in the PR department at Vance Enterprises. Been there a year and 3 months. Graduated from some no-name, for-profit online college. Ordinary family, her parents run a roadside produce stand in a rural town in Ohio. Right now, she's renting a studio apartment in Astoria, Queens for about $3,500 a month. As for connections, she's chummy with a few coworkers, but there are no signs of any influential sugar daddies backing her. The PR department of Vance Enterprises. Hearing that, I almost laughed out loud. "Oh, Damien, what impeccable taste you have. They say don't shit where you eat, but you dragged this girl right into your own company headquarters. That department deals with the national press on a daily basis. If rumors started leaking from there, Vance Enterprises stock would plummet into the abyss." "There's something else, Mrs. Vance," Sam added. "What is it?" "This Ashley has a nickname around the office. Behind her back, coworkers call her Little Miss Innocent. They say it's because she plays the pure, naive sweetheart, always talking in this soft, high-pitched voice. But when it comes to stealing credit or throwing others under the bus, she's ruthless. Her direct boss is a woman named Elaine, and their relationship is incredibly tense. Word is, Ashley once went over Elaine's head and reported directly to the CEO. To the CEO? To Damien? Yes. About 3 months ago, Ashley bypassed her department director and marched straight into Damien Vance's office. Elaine threw a massive fit afterward But the whole thing was swept under the rug because Mr. Vance personally signed Ashley's paperwork to make her a permanent employee 3 months ago. So, Damien and Ashley had been sleeping together for at least 3 months. I leaned back against the sofa, lightly tapping my fingers on the armrest. 3 months. 100 days. While I was busy securing the international merger deal for Vance Enterprises, he was rolling around with some junior staffer from PR. Sam, keep a tail on her. I need to know everything. Her social media, who she talks to, where she goes. The more detailed, the better. Understood. Hanging up, I walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window. The Manhattan skyline sparkled with lights. The Vance Enterprises skyscraper was only 2 miles away, and the lights on the executive floors were still on. God knows which miserable employees were burning the midnight oil there, building Damien Vance's empire. And now, the queen of this empire was being openly provoked by a cheap mistress. I picked up my phone, opened the 3 photos, and looked at them again. The girl was undeniably pretty. Good bone structure, big eyes, flawless skin, dimples when she smiled. But the triumph in her eyes was far too obvious. She looked like a toddler who had stolen someone else's toy and simply couldn't wait to show it off. Stupid. Unbelievably stupid. In high society, I had seen all kinds of mistresses. The smart ones sat quietly, knew their place, and understood who they could and couldn't mess with. Girls like this Ashley, who deliberately throw themselves into the line of fire, were a rarity. Apparently, she thought that because Damien spoiled her, she had the right to challenge me. Apparently, she decided a couple of photos would make me lose my mind, file for a messy divorce with tears and screaming, and allow her to take my place. Apparently, she thought Catherine Sterling was just a mindless doll who married well thanks to the Sterling family's connections and old money. But there was one thing she didn't know. Last year, the master plan for that massive merger that shook Wall Street, I wrote it. The PR crisis 2 years ago that nearly destroyed Vance Enterprises, I fixed it. When that idiot Damien was ambushed by the Legacy board members, I was the one sitting next to him, feeding him every single word. Without Catherine Sterling, Damien Vance would be nothing. The phone screen went dark, reflecting my face. I was smiling. A genuine smile. Because a brilliant idea had just popped into my head. So, Ashley works in the public relations department. That means she cares deeply about her professional image. That means she dreams of going from a nobody to the CEO's wife. Perfect. I will make her famous throughout the entire company. I opened my contacts and found PR Director Elaine's number, which I had saved a while back for work purposes. Then I found the contacts for the VP of Human Resources, the head of administration, and several executive vice presidents. Next, I logged into Vance Enterprises' corporate directory. As the CEO's wife, I had full access to the organizational charts and employee databases. I extracted the corporate email addresses of the entire PR department, from Elaine down to every junior specialist. I added her direct supervisors, colleagues from adjacent departments, and even the interns. Total: 127 contacts. Tomorrow morning, when they opened their Outlook inboxes, these 127 people would receive a very special gift. I attached the 3 photos to a new email, added the screenshots of the text thread, and drafted a brief message. An employee in your company's public relations department, Ashley Higgins, sent me the attached photographs yesterday at 8:12 p.m., accompanied by the following message. Hey sis, he says you're basically a dead fish in bed. As the legal spouse of Vance Enterprises CEO, Damien Vance, I believe this employee's actions constitute a gross violation of professional ethics. I am bringing this matter to the attention of the HR department and executive management. I trust that strict and appropriate disciplinary measures will be taken. Regards, Catherine Sterling Vance. I set the email to schedule send. Recipients: 127 Vance Enterprises employees. CC'd, the official HR grievance inbox and the board of directors secretarial team. Scheduled time: tomorrow at exactly 9:00 a.m. The exact moment everyone arrives at the office with their coffees, boots up their computers, and starts the workday. Finished, I set the phone down and headed to the shower. The water was the perfect temperature. I slowly washed my hair, methodically lathered my body wash, and even applied a face mask. The mirror reflected my face. For 28, my skin was flawless. My features were striking, the kind of classic, aristocratic beauty that only improves with age. When I married Damien, everyone called it the ultimate Manhattan power couple, a flawless union of beauty, brains, and billions. Now I realized brains had nothing to do with him. He was just lucky to be born into the right family. I stepped out of the bathroom with the mask still on, checked my phone, and saw 2 more messages from Ashley. "Ah, sis, why aren't you answering? Are you mad? Damien is spending the night at my place. He says just thinking about your permanently cold face makes him sick." I put down my cell, picked up the landline by the bed, and dialed Damien. He answered halfway through the first ring. "Kate." His voice was muffled. The background was dead silent, definitely not the hum of a busy restaurant. "Darling," I said in my sweetest, softest voice. "Are you coming home tonight?" A pause hung on the line. "I can't make it tonight. Still tied up with clients. I might have to stay at the hotel until morning." "Oh, take care of yourself. Don't drink too much." "I won't. Get some sleep. Good night." I hung up the receiver, and the smile slowly faded from my face. Clients. Since when was Ashley considered a client? But that was fine. You love spending time with her so much, Damien? Enjoy it while it lasts. Let's see if you're still smiling tomorrow. I turned off my cell phone, shut down my iPad, unplugged the bedroom landline, climbed into bed, pulled up the duvet, and closed my eyes. I slept surprisingly well that night. In 9 hours, the world outside was going to be turned completely upside down. The next morning at 7:00 a.m., I was woken up by a call. Not an alarm on my phone, but the wake-up call service from a hotel phone. Yes, I didn't sleep at home last night. After turning off my devices, I had taken a car straight to the Plaza Hotel, overlooking Central Park, and booked the presidential suite on the top floor. In 3 years of marriage, I had spent less than 2 years in total at the Vance family estate in Connecticut. The rest of the time, I essentially lived here. Damien had no idea, mostly because he couldn't care less whether I was home or not. I washed up and ordered room service for breakfast. The waiter who rolled the cart in also handed me an envelope. "Mrs. Vance, this was left for you at the concierge desk late last night." There was no return address, but I knew exactly who it was from. Tearing it open, I found a stack of printed photographs and a thick dossier. Sam never disappointed. The photos documented Ashley's daily life. A profile shot at her cubicle, a close-up at a mall, laughing over drinks with girlfriends at a trendy bar. There were also several shots of her and Damien walking into the lobby of a hyper-exclusive luxury condo building in Tribeca. I knew that building. It was a flagship project Vance Enterprises finished last year, but hadn't put on the public market yet. Damien had kept a 2-story penthouse there for entertaining important overseas investors. Now, it was clear exactly what kind of investors he was entertaining. I ate my croissant and flipped through the photos, finding the whole thing increasingly hilarious. This girl had 2 completely distinct personas. At the office, she wore sensible, conservative blazers, her hair pulled back neatly. She walked with her head down, the picture of modesty. But the second she stepped out of the corporate building, she'd slip into skin-tight dresses, stilettos, and strut down the sidewalk with a provocative, defiant glare. The funniest picture was a selfie she took in an elevator. Ashley was huddled in the corner, pouting her lips in a duck face, posing like some wannabe TikTok influencer. And plastered on her phone case was a glittering decal that read, "I just want to be your princess." I nearly choked on my coffee. 26 years old. Still a princess. What did Damien even see in her? Did he find her sheer stupidity refreshing? Setting the photos aside, I picked up the dossier. It was a comprehensive background report. Sam had dug up her entire life story, from birth to present day. Ashley's real name was Nora Higgins. She was born in a declining Rust Belt town in Ohio. Her father, John, ran a local produce stand at a flea market, mainly selling potatoes. Her mother, Mary, sold fruit in the stall next to him. She had a younger brother, Kyle, 3 years her junior. He was the local white trash degenerate who dropped out of high school in 10th grade and survived entirely on the money his sister sent him. At 18, Nora enrolled in a predatory, for-profit online college. Her tuition was scraped together by borrowing from every relative they had. Sophomore year, she legally changed her name to Ashley, claiming Nora sounded too redneck and would ruin her chances of building a career in New York. Along with the name change, She reinvented herself, piling on makeup, buying knockoff designer clothes, and desperately mimicking the accent of Manhattan Trust Fund babies. After getting her useless doon to make smakescree, she sat at home for 6 months before somehow finessing her way into a receptionist gig at a small logistics firm in Queens. She quit before hitting the 1-year mark. Bounced around a few more useless jobs, never lasting long. And then, a year and 3 months ago, by some miracle, she passed the interviews at Vance Enterprises and landed in the elite PR department. Here, I paused. I knew Vance Enterprises' hiring standards perfectly well. Even for entry-level corporate roles, they strictly recruited from the Ivy League or top-tier state schools. The PR department, in particular, only took people with degrees from NYU, Columbia, or Wharton, or candidates with at least 3 years of solid agency experience. How could a girl from a diploma mill with a garbage resume get a foot in the door at Vance Enterprises? The answer was right on the next page. Attached was a leaked copy of her interview evaluation sheet. All 5 interviewers had given her abysmal scores. The final consensus read, "Education does not meet criteria. Work experience insufficient. Not recommended for hire." But at the very bottom of the page was a handwritten note. "Hire her. Damien Vance." Ah, Damien. I took a deep breath and kept reading. Her performance after being hired could be summarized in one word. Catastrophic. She couldn't draft a basic press release, couldn't network with journalists, and barely knew how to use Excel. Her director, Elaine, had repeatedly filed complaints up the chain, demanding she be fired. But every time, the issue evaporated. The reason was simple. Damien forbade it. 3 months ago, the company faced a minor PR crisis over defective product complaints. Elaine and her team were working insane overtime to kill the story. Ashley, completely bypassing the chain of command, walked straight into the CEO's office. Afterward, not only did Damien refuse to reprimand her for breaking protocol, but he actually called Elaine into his office and tore her a new one for being intolerant and overly harsh on junior staff. Since that day, Ashley had become untouchable in the department. Her colleagues sarcastically dubbed her Little Miss Innocent. She constantly played the victim, but was always the first to stab someone in the back. Some people had seen her leaving expensive steakhouses with Damien. Others noticed her carrying designer bags that her entry-level salary couldn't possibly cover. Someone even saw her climbing into a black custom Maybach after work. Everyone at corporate knew that was Damien's personal car, but they all chose to keep their mouths shut. They knew that crossing Ashley meant crossing the CEO. I closed the folder and leaned back in my chair. Morning sunlight flooded the suite. I sipped my coffee, watching the Manhattan traffic gridlock far below, my brain working at maximum capacity. Ashley wasn't a smart opponent. She was far too arrogant, far too eager to brag about snagging a rich man. In my social circles, a girl with her temperament wouldn't survive a weekend in the Hamptons. But inside the company bubble, shielded by Damien's absolute authority, she felt invincible. The only question was, how long could Damien protect her? And would he even care about her once he was forced to save his own skin? I put my coffee cup down and turned on my phone. Immediately, the hotel room's landline began flashing dozens of missed calls from the exact same number. Damien. He must have figured it out. It wasn't hard to imagine the absolute chaos erupting at corporate right now. At 9:00 a.m., my scheduled email went out. First to Elaine, then to the VP of HR, the admins, the VPs, and over 100 PR staffers. An official email from Catherine Sterling Vance, the CEO's legal wife, featuring photos of the mistress wearing the wife's robe, lounging in the CEO's bed, complete with the quote about being a dead fish. This email was undoubtedly spreading through the internal Slack channels like a highly contagious virus. Within half an hour, all 10,000 employees across the company would know. Within an hour, the gossip would reach partners, suppliers, competitors, and the entire Wall Street ecosystem. Ashley wanted fame? I delivered it on a silver platter. Damien wanted to play with fire? Let him burn. I picked up Sam's dossier again and flipped to the final page. It was a list of Ashley's social media accounts, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Everything was public, and 90% of her content was just pure, unfiltered bragging. Designer bags, Michelin star restaurants, 5-star resorts, the leather interiors of luxury cars. Every post came with nauseating captions. Feels so good to be spoiled. Every day is a fairy tale with the right man. The comments were full of envious friends. Someone asked if she had found a sugar daddy. She never answered directly, just replying with shy emojis or saying, "Take a guess. Soon you won't have to anymore." I gathered the papers, walked into the walk-in closet, and got dressed. A sharp black pencil skirt, a beige silk blouse, nude Louboutin pumps, hair pulled back into a sleek chignon, pearl studs. The woman in the mirror was elegant, composed, and utterly devoid of emotion. Then, I finally checked my phone. Over 900 unread messages, more than 300 missed calls. My inbox was exploding. Damien had called 47 times. My mother-in-law, Beatrice, 15 times. Over 200 calls from Vance Enterprises extensions. There were unknown numbers, and several calls from Ashley herself. I ignored all of them and opened Microsoft Teams on my phone. Just as I expected, the company was in a state of absolute pandemonium. In the main PR department chat, the message count was in the thousands. People were posting screenshots of the email, asking, "Is this real?" Others chimed in, "I always knew she was trash. She's been acting like she owns the place." People were dropping popcorn emojis. Someone tagged Elaine and asked, "What do we do?" Elaine had replied with a single sentence, "Management is reviewing the situation. Employees are strictly prohibited from sharing internal communications outside the company, but it was obvious you couldn't keep a lid on this." I checked X, Twitter, and Reddit, and saw the gossip had already breached the perimeter. Someone claiming to be a Vance employee posted, "Nuclear bomb dropped at work today. CEO's wife just CC'd the whole company exposing his mistress, who works with us. Sent pics of her in the wife's bed to HR." Absolutely savage. The effect had far exceeded my expectations. Right at that moment, Damien called again. I stared at his name flashing on the screen, waited for 5 rings, and leisurely answered. "I'm listening," I said, using the casual tone one might use to discuss the weather. From the other end came Damien's voice, vibrating with barely contained rage. "Kate, where the hell are you? Does it matter? Do you have any idea what you've done, blasting those photos out to the entire company? Have you lost your damn mind?" "I haven't lost my mind," I replied calmly. "I simply forwarded the photos your little Ashley sent me to the people who handle workplace misconduct. As the legal wife of the CEO, I brought an employee's gross violation of professional ethics to HR's attention." "What's the problem?" Damien went dead silent for 3 seconds. "Kate, we need to talk. Seriously. About what? Blowing up a scandal like this doesn't help anyone. Come to the office. Let's talk face to face." "All right," I said. "I'll be there tomorrow. But I won't be talking to you. I'll be talking to your mother." I hung up and immediately dialed Beatrice Vance. My mother-in-law picked up faster than I anticipated. Not even a full ring. "Kate!" "You finally turned your phone on." Beatrice's voice sounded anxious, but beneath it lay a thick layer of irritation. "What on earth is going on? Why would you send that filth around the company? What are you trying to achieve?" "Damien's been trying to reach you. I've called you a dozen times. Do you realize the Vance family is a laughingstock across New York today?" I pulled the phone slightly away from my ear and waited for her to finish. I knew Beatrice too well. Since marrying Damien's father 40 years ago, she had spent her entire life fiercely guarding the family's reputation. When the old man Vance started taking mistresses, Beatrice pretended she was blind. Furthermore, she appeared arm in arm with him at every charity gala, projecting the image of a flawless marriage. The title of the legal wife was etched into her very bones. She endured it for 30 years, waited for her husband to drop dead, and then consolidated all the family assets into her own hands. I knew exactly how to handle women like her. "Beatrice," I said, my voice completely flat and steady. "Calm down and listen to me." She scoffed, but stopped yelling. "First of all, I didn't take those photos. Ashley took them herself and sent them to me to brag. Not only did she send the photos, she insulted me. Do you want to know what she wrote? What did she write? That Damien calls me a dead fish in bed." Silence fell over the line. Beatrice might not have loved me like her own daughter, but she was a woman who had lived through a husband's infidelity. She understood better than anyone how venomous those words were. Secondly, I continued. I didn't send those to the company to cause a scandal. I did it for damage control. Damage control? Her voice spiked. The entire company knows. Rumors are flying all over Wall Street, and you call this damage control? Answer one question for me, Beatrice, I said. Ashley is an employee at Vance Enterprises. Knowing Damien is married, she sleeps with him, and then aggressively texts provocative photos to his legal wife. If I had stayed quiet, what do you think her next move would have been? Beatrice said nothing. She would have lost her mind with arrogance. Today she sends photos to me. Tomorrow, she leaks them to Page 6. And the day after that, she shows up heavily pregnant at the gates of your estate in Greenwich. That is when the Vance family would be truly disgraced. I locked this narrative inside the corporate firewall. It's a warning to her. And a warning to Damien. Let them both know that Catherine Sterling is not to be messed with. But why a mass email? Couldn't you have handled this quietly? Handle it quietly? I chuckled bitterly. Beatrice, when you were quietly handling that woman your husband kept, did you ever truly resolve it? Didn't she keep showing up at your door demanding hush money? Those words hit Beatrice like a dagger to the heart. She was silent for a long time. Have you been digging into my past? Her tone turned heavy, dangerous. I didn't have to. Damien told me. He told me how, when he was a kid, he watched that woman come to your house and scream on the lawn. I softened my tone just a fraction. Beatrice, I am not you. You chose to endure it back then because you had no exit strategy. But I have the Sterling family behind me. We may not have your level of liquid capital, but we are a legacy family. We don't roll over. I've been married to Damien for 3 years. I've bled for your company, and after what he did to me, I refuse to just sit and take it. Beatrice sighed heavily. And what exactly do you plan to do? I want Ashley gone from Vance Enterprises. Forever. And as for Damien? I paused. That depends on his behavior. What behavior? He just called me, screaming, blaming me for turning this into a catastrophe, whining that the board is panicking and calling an emergency meeting tomorrow. Clearly, he thinks he's the victim. Beatrice went quiet again. Kate, tell me the truth. You orchestrated this entire thing from the moment you received those photos, didn't you? Yes. A soft chuckle came through the receiver, whether it was bitter or impressed. I couldn't tell. I underestimated you. I'm not going to war with the Vance family, Beatrice, I said calmly. I just want to protect what is rightfully mine. If Damien realizes his mistake and cleans up this mess with the girl, I might consider keeping the marriage intact. If he remains stubborn, I'll trigger the prenuptial agreement. I will take exactly what I am owed. Not a penny more, not a penny less. Beatrice thought for a moment. Come to the estate tomorrow. We'll talk in person. Fine. I hung up and sat on the sofa. My mother-in-law's reaction was entirely predictable. She wouldn't take my side out of loyalty, and she wouldn't take Damien's side out of maternal love. She would exclusively side with whatever protected the Vance Empire's bottom line. If I could prove that keeping me around was more profitable than indulging Damien's idiocy, she would become my strongest ally. Otherwise, she'd throw me to the wolves without hesitation. I needed to show her my leverage. I picked up the dossier Sam had delivered and opened the pages detailing Ashley's social media. I read through every bragging post carefully. One in particular caught my eye. 3 months ago, she posted a photo from Bergdorf Goodman on 5th Avenue, holding half a dozen shopping bags from top-tier designer boutiques. The caption read, "Thank you to a certain someone for spoiling me today. What a haul." In the comments, a friend asked how much she dropped. Ashley replied with a blushing emoji. Oh, not that much. Just around $20,000. $20,000. Her salary at Vance PR was $80,000 a year. Even with a generous annual bonus, she'd be clearing maybe $95,000 before taxes. Her rent alone was $42,000 a year, plus daily Manhattan living expenses. Logically, she should be living paycheck to paycheck, probably buried in credit card debt. Yet she casually dropped 20 grand on a single shopping trip. Who paid for that? The answer was painfully obvious. I took a photo of the printout and placed it into a separate folder, along with the other blackmail material. Next, I pulled up the Vance Enterprises corporate handbook on my laptop. I found the exact clauses I needed. Section 3. Clause A. Employees are strictly prohibited from utilizing their professional position or personal relationships with executive management to obtain undue financial or career advantages. Section 4. Clause C. If an employee's conduct causes severe reputational damage to the company reserves the right to terminate employment immediately, for cause, without severance. Ashley was guilty on both counts. She got her job through Damien Clause A. She sent me those photos, triggering a massive PR disaster Clause C. Under corporate policy, they couldn't just fire her. They could theoretically sue her for damages. I opened a Word document and began typing. Heading: Formal complaint of ethical violations regarding employee Ashley Higgins. The document had 3 sections. Part 1. The photos and texts. Part 2. Evidence of nepotistic hiring, including a copy of the leaked evaluation sheet with Damien's signature overriding HR. Part 3. Evidence of undue financial benefits obtained via the CEO, attaching her social media screenshots and the financial estimates Sam had calculated. At the bottom, I added, I, Catherine Sterling, Vance, legal spouse of CEO Damien Vance, officially demand that the Board of Directors and the Human Resources Department terminate Ashley Higgins for cause, in accordance with the corporate bylaws. Should no action be taken within 7 business days, I reserve the right to pursue public litigation. I printed the document, signed it, dated it, and made 3 copies, 1 for the board, 1 for HR, and 1 to keep for myself. By the time I finished, it was 3:00 p.m. I stood up, stretched, and walked back to the window. The hotel offered a stunning panoramic view of Manhattan. The Vance Enterprises glass tower gleamed in the afternoon sun, looking like a massive knife stabbed into the heart of the city. Who that knife would cut tomorrow depended entirely on Damien's choices. Right then, my phone rang. An unknown number, I answered. A trembling voice, thick with rage and tears, shrieked into my ear. Kate! You absolute psycho! What gave you the right to blast my private photos to my entire office? Do you have any idea what you've done to me? I didn't let her finish. Ashley, did you ask for my permission when you sent them to me? Once you hit send, they became mine. I'll do whatever I want with them. That's a gross invasion of privacy. I'm calling the police. Go ahead, I said casually, leaning against the window glass. Go right now. While you're at the precinct, make sure to show the detective the entire text thread. Let's see what the cops think about a mistress sending taunting nudes to a legal wife. Let's see whose rights were violated. Oh, and while you're chatting with the police, maybe you can explain how a junior PR rep affording 20 grand in designer bags is totally legitimate income? Dead silence on the other end. Ashley, let me give you some free advice. Weigh every word you speak from this second forward, I said, my voice dropping to a glacial chill. Right now, your best move is to shut your mouth and quietly wait to be fired. If you try to provoke me one more time, the next batch of photos won't go to your corporate email. They'll go to the flea market in your hometown. They'll be plastered all over your parents' produce stand and sent directly to your degenerate brother Kyle's meth-head friends. Want to test me? Ashley's breathing hitched. The rage vanished entirely, replaced by pure, raw animal panic. How? How do you know about my family? I know everything. Don't ever call this number again. I hung up and instantly blocked her. Outside, the sky was beginning to darken. It was the final quiet night before the hurricane made landfall. Tomorrow, everything changes. The next morning, I woke up at exactly 7:30 a.m. I washed, dressed, and did my makeup unhurriedly, step by step. Today, I chose a deep emerald green velvet dress, a black cashmere coat, and matching stilettos. My hair was tied back in a severe, elegant chignon, exposing my neck, square emerald studs in my ears. The woman in the mirror looked perfectly composed, like a freshly sharpened blade resting in a velvet sheath. At 8:00 a.m., I checked out of the plaza. While the valet was bringing my car around, I called Sam. Sam, was the package delivered? Yes. At 10:00 p.m. last night, my courier handed the envelope to Vance Corporate Security. I have the receipt, By 8:00 a.m. today, the board secretary will be the first to see it. Excellent work. Anything else? Yes, Mrs. Vance. Last night, Ashley went to Mr. Vance's Tribeca penthouse. She left at 3:00 a.m. In hysterics, mascara running down her face. My guys got pictures. Want me to send them? Do it. A few seconds later, the image popped up. Ashley was standing by the condo building's security gate, desperately trying to hail a cab, her hand covering her mouth as if she was violently sobbing. She looked utterly pathetic. I looked at the photo for 2 seconds and put the phone away. Crying? This is just the appetizer. At 9:30 a.m., I pulled up to the wrought iron gates of the Vance family estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. Damien's father had bought this sprawling 2-acre property 30 years ago. Classic colonial architecture. Red brick, slate roof. The courtyard was lined with Beatrice's prized white magnolias. Usually the driveway was empty on a weekday, but today, 3 cars were parked there. Damien's black Maybach, Beatrice's silver Bentley, and the dark sedan belonging to Warren, the head of Vance's legal department. Wow, they even brought in the lawyers. I took my time walking inside. 3 people were already waiting for me in the grand living room. Beatrice sat dead center on a leather Chesterfield sofa, holding a cup of Earl Grey tea, her expression unreadable. To her left sat Damien. His custom suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. He clearly hadn't slept a wink. Seeing me, he practically leaped off the couch. Kate, I didn't even look at him. I walked past him to the armchair opposite Beatrice and sat down, crossing my legs gracefully. Good morning, Beatrice. Beatrice lowered her teacup and dragged her eyes over me, from my face to my dress to my shoes, and finally to the leather folder resting in my lap. You look well put together, she noted. I wouldn't disrespect you by showing up looking otherwise. Damien took a step toward me, looming over my chair. He was 32. In the boardroom, he liked to play the ruthless visionary. But right now, his face looked like he'd just been slapped across the jaw. He was a cocktail of fury, humiliation, and deeply buried panic. What the hell are you trying to accomplish with those photos? He demanded. Are you insane? Do you know my phone has been exploding since 8 a.m. with calls from the board? I tilted my head up and gave him a faint smile. Why are you yelling at me, Damien? I didn't take those photos. Your little Ashley took them, and she sent them to me. All I did was help her share them. Didn't she want the whole world to know how close you two are? I made her dream come true. You should be thanking me. You! Oh, and besides, I interrupted, pulling a copy of my formal complaint out of the folder and tossing it onto the mahogany coffee table. I did you another favor this morning. That complaint landed on the board of directors' desk at 8:00 a.m. It details exactly how Ashley bypassed HR, what she actually does all day, and exactly how much of your money she's been burning through. Take a guess how the board is going to react. Damien's face drained of all color. He snatched the document off the table. As he furiously flipped through the pages, his expression contorted. When he hit the copy of the interview evaluation sheet, the one with his own handwritten hire, her scribbled at the bottom, his hands started shaking. How? How did you get this? Take a wild guess. Beatrice reached out, snatched the document out of his trembling hands, put on her reading glasses, and began to read slowly. The living room was dead silent, save for the crisp turning of pages. 5 minutes later, she closed the folder, took off her glasses, and looked at me. Is this all verified? She asked. You can check with Warren, I replied, nodding toward the lawyer. Warren adjusted his glasses, looking profoundly uncomfortable. Mrs. Vance, I actually saw the originals this morning. The evaluation sheet was indeed pulled from the HR archives. The handwriting is unequivocally Mr. Vance's. Beatrice closed her eyes and took a deep, shuddering breath. Damien's Adam's apple bobbed violently. Mom, I can explain everything. Explain what? Beatrice's voice wasn't loud, but every word cracked like a whip. Explain how, for the sake of some cheap skirt, you falsified hiring records in your own goddamn company? Your father, with all his many whores, never once brought a single one of them into corporate headquarters. You gave her a cushy job and left a paper trail proving it. Have you completely lost your mind? Damien opened his mouth but couldn't form a single word. Beatrice turned back to me. Kate, your terms. My terms are incredibly simple, Beatrice. I held up 3 fingers. First, Vance Enterprises terminates Ashley immediately, for cause, no severance. Second, Damien signs a postnuptial agreement explicitly admitting fault for infidelity, voluntarily forfeiting a massive chunk of our shared marital assets. Third, I stared dead into Damien's eyes. He is going to stand right here, in front of you, and tell us exactly how far this went. Is she pregnant? Did he transfer any stock options to her? Has he bought her any real estate using marital funds? Damien's pupils dilated in panic. Kate, you are going way too far. I'm going too far? I stood up, closing the distance between us until I was inches from his face. You brought a mistress into our office. You let her wear my clothes. You let her roll around in my bed. You let her send me texts calling me a dead fish. And I'm going too far? Who is crossing lines here, Damien? We were just having fun, he shouted desperately. Is it really worth destroying everything over some fun? Fun? I laughed, a sharp, cold sound. Fine. Tell me, how long have you been having this fun? How much cash have you dumped on her? Did you knock her up? Damien stood frozen, unable to make a sound. Suddenly, Beatrice's voice cut through the room like a blade. Answer her, Damien. It was the icy, matriarchal tone Damien had been terrified of since childhood. His shoulders slumped. The fight completely drained out of him. 3 months. She's not pregnant. No stock transfers. I bought her some bags and jewelry. Probably spent around 50 or 60 grand. 60 grand, I repeated, nodding slowly. Were those your personal funds? Or marital funds? The look on his face told me everything I needed to know. I see. I turned back to my mother-in-law. Beatrice, you heard him. According to our prenuptial agreement, if one spouse is at fault for the dissolution of the marriage via infidelity, the innocent party is entitled to 70% of all jointly acquired assets. I won't demand 70%. I will take an even 50%. Plus, 3% of Vance Enterprises' voting shares. 3%? Damien's head snapped up. Are you out of your fucking mind? 3% of Vance Enterprises was worth roughly $20 million. Beatrice didn't say a word. She just stared at me, calculating. Beatrice, I added smoothly. I have no interest in hostile takeovers. I just want the dividend payouts, and I am willing to sign a legally binding clause that I will not sell those shares to a third party as long as Damien remains CEO. Think of it as collateral. After all, the value I've brought to this company over the past 3 years easily exceeds $20 million. Beatrice sat in silence for a very long time. Does this mean you are filing for divorce? That depends entirely on him. Damien, Beatrice said, shifting her heavy gaze to her son. Are you going to cut ties with this girl? I'll end it. I'll cut her off completely. Damien grabbed onto the question like a drowning man to a life preserver. I'll have her thrown out of the building today. Good. I nodded. We'll see. But be warned, Damien. If I find out you've contacted her even once, or if you bring home a new little project, I won't offer terms again. I will simply trigger a vote of no confidence and see to it that Vance Enterprises gets a new CEO. Damien turned pale with rage, but he forced himself to nod. Beatrice stood up and walked over to me. Kate, you've proven to be far more ruthless than I imagined. Life forced my hand, Beatrice. No, my mother-in-law shook her head slowly. No one forced you. You were simply waiting for the perfect opportunity. And those 3 photographs were exactly the ammunition you needed to pull the trigger. I didn't reply. Beatrice turned sharply to her son. And you, get your ass back to Manhattan right now and process her termination. I want paperwork proving she is out of the building by lunch. Understand? I'm going. Right now. Damien grabbed his coat and practically sprinted out of the living room. Beatrice sat back down and took a slow sip of her cold tea. Sit down, Kate. I sat. Damien was spoiled rotten by his father, Beatrice murmured, staring into her cup. When my husband brought that woman around, Damien was only 10. He grew up watching his father disrespect me, and he never learned what a real husband looks like. I thought that by marrying a Sterling, a girl with real class, he'd settle down. Instead, he just followed in his father's footsteps. She looked up at me. You played a brutal hand today, but it was the right one. Damien needed to be broken to be fixed. I couldn't do it. His father wouldn't do it. The board couldn't do it. But you did. Beatrice, I'm not trying to break him. I just refuse to let anyone wipe their feet on me. Exactly. Beatrice smiled faintly. I tolerated it my entire life. And I never found the courage to say those words. You are much stronger than I ever was. She reached under the coffee table, pulled out a thick manila envelope, and handed it to me. This is for you. Not because you were wronged, but because you proved you're the only one capable of keeping my idiot son in line. I took the envelope. I didn't open it. I just held it in my lap. Thank you, Beatrice. Don't mention it. She stood up. Stay here tonight. Don't go back to the hotel. This is your house, and nobody is ever going to kick you out of it. With that, she walked up the grand staircase to the second floor. I sat alone in the massive living room. Outside, the wind rustled the magnolia branches. And on the other side of the city, Ashley was about to experience the longest day of her miserable life. After peeling out of the estate, Damien drove straight toward Manhattan. He hit the interstate, pushing the Maybach like a madman. 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. The massive black luxury car wove through traffic like a wounded beast. Horns blared behind him, but he ignored them, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. His mind was absolute chaos. All he could see was Catherine's eyes, not angry, but utterly, terrifyingly cold. The way you look at a bug before stepping on it. She sat there in that perfect velvet dress, delivering every demand flawlessly, as if reciting a script she had memorized weeks ago, because she hadn't improvised. She had built this trap the exact second she received those texts. The private investigator, the leaked HR files, the credit card tracking, the formal board complaint. You don't build a nuke like that overnight. She didn't cry. She didn't throw plates. She just quietly gathered the evidence and dropped a guillotine on his neck. Damien suddenly felt freezing cold. He had been married to Kate for 3 years and honestly believed he had her figured out. The polished daughter of the Sterling family, Ivy League pedigree, impeccable taste, flawless manners. He thought she was just a convenient trophy wife, a useful prop for charity galas and corporate dinners. He never realized she was a goddamn apex predator. 3 years ago, she casually asked him to sign the prenuptial agreement. He had laughed, saying it was bad luck. She just smiled warmly and said, "It's just standard procedure, darling." Now he realized that the second his pen hit that paper, he had locked the collar around his own neck. His phone rang through the car's Bluetooth. The dashboard flashed Ashley's name. He hesitated for 3 seconds, then hit answer. Damien. Ashley's voice sounded like nails on a chalkboard, shrill and frantic. Where are you? Everyone is staring at me. They're whispering behind my back. That bitch Elaine literally announced to the whole floor that I'm getting fired. You need to get here right now and protect me. Damien winced. Where are you right now? In the office. I'm hiding in the women's restroom on the 24th floor. I can't even walk out. When are you getting here? You promised you'd take care of me. There were real tears in her voice, but strangely, it only filled Damien with overwhelming disgust. 3 months ago, this would have triggered his hero complex. Back then, when she had accidentally spilled coffee on his suit, she looked up at him with those massive, terrified doe eyes, apologizing in that soft, trembling voice like a frightened rabbit. He hadn't been angry. He'd found it endearing. And then it escalated. Ashley was the exact opposite of Kate. Kate was too competent. So formidable that next to her, he constantly felt like he was playing second fiddle. When she negotiated mergers, she was ruthless. She could read a profit and loss sheet faster than his CFO. Even in bed, she was composed, always in total control. With her, he didn't feel like a husband. He felt like a junior partner in a joint venture. But Ashley threw tantrums over shoes. She looked up at him like he was a god. She constantly cooed, "Oh my God, Damien, how do you know all this? You're so powerful." It was like feeding raw sugar straight into his ego. It made him feel like a titan. But now, that sugar had turned to rat poison. "Listen to me very carefully," Damien hissed, his voice dropping an octave. "You are going to pack your shit, and you are going to leave through the service elevator." I'll tell HR to process your termination quietly. Don't take anything that belongs to the company. Just leave. I'll wire you your final paycheck. Dead silence on the line. What did you just say? Ashley's voice suddenly spiked into a screech, completely dropping the scared little girl act. You're firing me? By what right? You gave me this job. You told me you loved me, you stupid bitch. Damien roared back. Do you think I want this? When you decided it was a genius idea to text my wife pictures of my bed, were you using a single brain cell? You brought this on us? I was just mad. You kept ditching me to go home to her. I felt ignored. Damien let out a hollow, manic laugh. Ignored? I haven't given you enough? Everything you're wearing right now, every bag you own, I paid for. All I asked was for you to keep your head down. Why the hell did you poke Catherine? Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? What makes you think you're in her league? Damien rubbed his temples. A massive migraine building. You're an idiot. Just an absolute idiot. Listen to me. Today, you are permanently vacating Vance Enterprises. I will wire 50 grand to your account by noon. After that, we are done. You don't call me, you don't text me, and if you ever go anywhere near Catherine again, I will ruin you. 50 grand? Are you treating me like some homeless beggar? Ashley's voice cracked. Her fake, sweet Manhattan persona completely vanished, exposing the greedy, desperate hustler underneath. I lost my job because of you. My reputation is destroyed. And you think $50,000 covers it? I'll go straight to page 6. I'll go to TMZ and tell them everything. Damien's vision blurred with rage. How much do you want? 500,000. Not a penny less. You're out of your goddamn mind. You think I'm joking? You think 50 grand is gonna shut me up? I have leverage, Damien. I kept copies of my hiring forms with your signature on them. I kept every single receipt from Saks. If you don't pay me, I will leak it all. Let the world see how the great CEO of Vance Enterprises really runs his company. Damien's hands clamped around the steering wheel so hard his joints popped. Suddenly, Kate's words from an hour ago echoed in his head. If I find out you've contacted her even once, I will trigger a vote of no confidence. Kate already handed that exact evidence to the board. If Ashley went to the press, Kate would trigger the prenuptial clauses. Take half his net worth. Steal his shares. And let the vultures on Wall Street tear his carcass apart. 500,000. I'll wire it tomorrow. Damien ground out through his teeth. But you are going to sign an airtight NDA, and then you are going to disappear off the face of the earth. Money first. Then we'll talk. Ashley hung up. Damien grabbed his phone and hurled it as hard as he could against the passenger window. He was shaking. Not from anger. From sheer terror. He wasn't afraid of Ashley. He was afraid of Catherine. He was terrified of the woman sitting calmly in that green velvet dress, playing three-dimensional chess while he was playing checkers. She had anticipated everything, even the fact that Ashley would try to blackmail him. Damien pulled the Maybach over to the shoulder of the interstate, buried his face in his hands, and let out a muffled, pathetic groan. Meanwhile, back in Manhattan, Ashley was sitting on the tile floor of a handicap stall in the 24th floor women's restroom, hugging her knees and shaking violently. During the call with Damien, she had tried to sound tough, but her heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She wasn't fearless. She was just using aggression to mask her sheer panic. Outside the stall, she could hear the door opening and closing. Women walking in to touch up their lipstick, murmuring to each other. Did you see the mass email this morning? Are you kidding? Everyone saw it. God. Were those really her photos? How psycho do you have to be to send that to the wife? I always knew her sweet little girl routine was totally fake. But to pull that on Catherine Sterling? That's career suicide, right? The Sterling family has old money power. They don't play. Little Miss Princess fucked around and found out. Ashley buried her face in her knees, her acrylic nails digging into her palms until they bled. She wanted to kick the door open and scream at them, but she couldn't, because they were right. She had sent those photos, fully convinced she had won. That morning, after Damien fell asleep, she had slipped into Catherine's custom robe. Standing in the mirror of the penthouse, she felt a rush of absolute supremacy over the haughty, untouchable wife. She snapped 3 photos and hit send. She genuinely believed the wife would have a mental breakdown, demand a divorce, and Ashley would smoothly slide into the role of Mrs. Vance, complete with the Greenwich estate. Instead, Catherine had simply BCC'd the entire executive team. When Ashley walked into the office this morning, everyone stared at her like she was carrying the plague. Elaine had called her into her glass office, slapped a printed copy of the email on the desk, and said, "Look what you did." Ashley had never been so terrified. Elaine's face was completely devoid of pity. "HR is processing your termination, Ashley. If you resign right now, you leave quietly. If we fire you for cause, I promise you, you will never work in corporate America again." She had sobbed, begging Elaine for a second chance. Elaine just shook her head and delivered the killing blow. "This isn't my call. This came straight from the CEO's wife. And your precious Damien isn't coming to save you." And Elaine was right. Damien didn't save her. He just tried to buy her off for 50 grand. For 3 months of work, she made 50 grand. Ashley bit her lip, tears ruining her expensive foundation. She couldn't accept this. She had clawed her way out of that depressing Rust Belt town, changed her name, learned to dress, faked a Manhattan accent. She thought she had caught the ultimate prize, and now she was left with absolutely nothing. Her phone buzzed. It was her brother, Kyle. She answered, and Kyle's frantic voice blasted through the speaker. "Nora! Holy shit, Nora, what is going on? Somebody mailed a bunch of photos to the flea market. They taped them to Dad's potato stand. It's you, in bed with some old dude. The whole town is losing their minds. Everybody is saying you moved to New York to become a high-end hooker. Mom literally passed out." The phone slipped from her fingers. It hit the floor tiles, the screen shattering into a spiderweb of cracks, but she didn't even try to pick it up. She slumped against the stall wall, feeling like her bones had turned to liquid. She remembered Catherine's chilling voice on the phone. "The next batch of photos won't go to your corporate email. They'll go to the flea market in your hometown." She had thought Catherine was just bluffing. But women like Catherine didn't bluff. Ashley covered her face and let out a raw, guttural scream. She didn't remember walking out of the bathroom. All she remembered was pushing the door open to find a crowd waiting in the hallway. Co-workers from PR, gossips from other floors, and 2 towering security guards in black suits. Everyone was staring. The silence was more deafening than insults. Keeping her head down, Ashley walked back to her cubicle. The clicking of her heels echoed loudly on the polished marble. An empty cardboard box was already waiting on her desk. Elaine was standing there, arms crossed, accompanied by a severe-looking woman in a gray pantsuit, the VP of Human Resources. "Ashley Higgins," the HR VP announced, loud enough for the entire floor to hear. "Pursuant to Vance Enterprises' corporate policy, due to severe violations involving the misuse of executive relationships for personal gain and causing catastrophic damage to the company's reputation, you are hereby terminated for cause, effective immediately. You have 10 minutes to collect your personal belongings. Security will escort you out." Ashley opened her mouth to speak, but her throat was completely dry. Whispers broke out around the cubicles. "Fired for cause. Good riddance. Look at her makeup, she looks like a raccoon. So gross." Her hands were shaking uncontrollably. She reached for her coffee mug, but her fingers slipped. The ceramic mug hit the floor and shattered. Stale coffee splashed onto the designer heels of a nearby coworker. "Hey, watch it," the coworker shrieked, jumping back in disgust. Ashley tried to mumble an apology, but the woman had already turned her back. What a mess. She dropped to her knees to pick up the ceramic shards. A sharp edge sliced her thumb, drawing blood, but she barely felt it. What hurt infinitely more was her completely obliterated pride. She blindly tossed her pathetic belongings into the box. A broken mug, a dead succulent, 2 PR textbooks she had never actually opened, a compact mirror. As she packed, she felt like she was physically ripping away pieces of her own identity. These items were worthless, but they were her proof that she belonged in this world. And now, this world was throwing her in the dumpster. She picked up the box. Elaine stepped forward and held out her hand. "Badge." Ashley reached up and unclipped her corporate ID lanyard. Staring back at her was the photo taken on her first day, smiling, radiant, utterly convinced she was destined for greatness. The HR rep shoved a clipboard at her. "Sign the termination acknowledgement." With a bloody, trembling hand, Ashley scribbled a messy signature. Not a single person said goodbye. Escorted by the two massive security guards, she walked toward the elevators. The 2-minute walk felt like a death march. Heads popped out of every office. People were literally recording her on their iPhones. Who's gonna hire her now with that on her record? Someone whispered loudly. Just as the elevator doors were about to close, a voice called out, "Wait!" It was Sarah, a quiet, unremarkable girl in the department who Ashley had largely ignored. Sarah jogged over and handed her a cheap plastic phone stand. "You forgot this." "Thanks," Ashley choked out. It was the first person all day who had spoken to her without pure malice. Sarah sighed softly. "Good luck, Nora." The doors slid shut. The digital floor indicator began to plummet. Arsha S. Arsha Sen. Arsha R. With every floor, she descended further away from the elite reality she had so desperately tried to infiltrate. The elevator pinged at the ground floor. The lobby of the Vance building was cavernous and bustling. Ashley just wanted to keep her head down and sprint for the revolving doors to disappear into the Manhattan crowds. But as she approached the exit, she froze. Standing right by the glass doors were 3 people: an older man, an older woman, and a scrawny young guy. They were wearing cheap, worn-out jackets, looking like they had just stepped off a Greyhound bus. It was her mother Mary, her father John, and her brother Kyle, Nora. Her mother spotted her, practically lunging forward to grab her arm. Her mother's eyes were swollen red from crying. "Nora, what is happening? What are these pictures? The whole town is talking. They're saying you're a high-priced escort. Tell me they're lying." Ashley couldn't force a single word out. Her father, his face purple with rage, violently threw a crumpled piece of paper right at her face. "What is there to say? Someone taped this to my produce stand. I've been selling potatoes in that town for 20 years. I look people in the eye. And because of you, you little tramp, I can't even show my face at the market." The crumpled paper hit the marble floor. It was a blown-up printout of the selfie she took in Damien's bed, throwing up a peace sign. People in the lobby suits, executives, visitors stopped in their tracks to watch the spectacle unfolding. Ashley lunged to pick up the photo, but Kyle kicked it away with his dirty sneaker. "Leave it. You're an embarrassment." "I was telling all my boys back home that my sister was a big-shot executive at Vance. Turns out you just sucked your way into an office chair. How am I supposed to look my crew in the eye now?" The dam finally broke. Tears poured down Ashley's face, tears of absolute, unadulterated despair. Her mother was sobbing. Her father was screaming. Her brother was looking at her like she was roadkill. Dozens of strangers were filming them. "Mom, Dad, let's just go. Please," she begged, trying to pull them toward the exit. But Mary yanked her arm away violently. "Don't touch me! Tell me to my face!" "Did you sleep with a married man?" Ashley squeezed her eyes shut. "Yes." Crack. A vicious slap exploded across her cheek. Her father stood there, chest heaving. "I put myself in debt to send you to college and you turn into a whore? I almost had a heart attack this morning. Your brother is trying to get his life together. Who's going to associate with him with garbage like you for a sister?" He grabbed her arm by the bicep, his grip like a vice. "Get in the truck. We're going back to Ohio. You're done humiliating us." She tried to pull back. The cardboard box slipped from her hands. The broken mug shattered into even smaller pieces. The dirt from her dead succulent scattered across the pristine lobby marble. Her life, her ambitions, her Manhattan dream, all of it ground into the dirt right there on the floor. Her father literally dragged her out the revolving doors. Before she was pulled away, she looked back at the towering glass skyscraper of Vance Enterprises. The mid-morning sun was glaring off the windows. 3 months ago, she walked through those doors and decided Nora Higgins was dead. Only Ashley existed now. 3 months later, she was being thrown out with the trash. Her father shoved her into the back of a rusted-out Ford F-150 parked illegally at the curb. As the door slammed shut, she remembered Catherine's cold voice on the phone. "I know everything." That woman truly knew everything. She knew exactly what Ashley feared most, and she systematically turned every single fear into a brutal reality. As the truck merged into traffic, heading west toward the tunnel and out of New York, Ashley closed her eyes. She had lost. Completely and utterly. Damien sat in his executive office for the rest of the day. He didn't turn on the lights. The electronic blinds were drawn shut. The heavy crystal ashtray on his desk was overflowing with cigarette butts. His phone buzzed relentlessly, but he refused to look at it. The corporate intranet was on fire. Someone had uploaded a video of Ashley being dragged out of the lobby by her screaming father. It was going viral on Wall Street meme pages. Vance Enterprises CEO fires Mistress after wife drops nuclear email to the whole company. Just after sunset, his office door opened. Warren, the head of legal, walked in. "Mr. Vance," Warren said, his face grave. "What?" "An emergency board of directors meeting has been formally convened for 10:00 a.m. tomorrow. The agenda." Warren hesitated. "The agenda is your inappropriate intervention in HR hiring procedures, the misappropriation of corporate funds, and a formal vote on your temporary suspension as chief executive officer." Damien's head snapped up. "Suspension? Who called for a vote?" "Victor Thorne. He's rallied 3 independent board members. He has copies of your wife's formal complaint, as well as the credit card statements showing the 20 grand you dropped at Saks Fifth Avenue." Damien slammed his fists on the desk. He thought he had cleverly hidden those expenses under a client entertainment ledger. Kate had unearthed every single cent. "There's more," Warren added quietly. "The Wall Street Journal is already calling PR for comment. If the board votes to suspend you tomorrow, it hits the front page." Damien stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. Midtown Manhattan glowed around him, but he could feel his empire crumbling beneath his feet. "Warren," Damien croaked. You worked for my father. What would he have done?" The lawyer sighed heavily. "Your father had his indiscretions, sir. But when he was caught, he quietly sent the women far away, and he begged your mother for forgiveness. He never, ever allowed a scandal to reach the board of directors." Damien pressed his forehead against the cool glass. "What an absolute idiot I am." Kate had calculated every single move. She didn't just want a divorce. She wanted to prove to him, unequivocally, that she could annihilate his entire life with a snap of her fingers. "What's your strategy for the board meeting tomorrow?" Warren asked. Damien walked back to his desk, opened a secure drawer, and pulled out a legal document. "I'm going to admit full fault, and I am voluntarily transferring 2% of my voting shares directly to Catherine." Warren stared at the paper. "Sir? 2%? That's easily $15 million. I have to show the board that I am paying the price for my mistakes," Damien said, his voice hollow. "And I have to show Kate that I surrender. I need her to not deliver the kill shot." The next morning, Blacktown cars and Escalades lined up outside the Vance Enterprises building. The last to arrive was a sleek, cherry-red Bentley. Catherine stepped out. She wore an immaculate ivory suit, a vintage Cartier brooch on her lapel, and a sharp red lip. She walked through the lobby like royalty. In the boardroom on the top floor, 12 directors sat around the massive oak table. Damien sat at the head, looking exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. Beatrice sat to his right, silently thumbing a string of jade worry beads. Opposite Damien sat Victor Thorne, an aggressive, ambitious billionaire who had been waiting years for a chance to seize control of the company. Catherine walked in smoothly and took the empty chair beside her mother-in-law. Victor Thorne immediately launched the assault. "The reputation of Vance Enterprises has been severely compromised in the press. We demand a full explanation for this debacle." Damien stood up. He didn't look at Victor. He looked around the room, bowing his head slightly. "I take full responsibility. Hiring Ashley Higgins was a catastrophic lapse in judgment. The funds spent on her were inappropriate. The blame rests entirely on my shoulders. As restitution, I am voluntarily transferring 2% of my personal equity to my spouse, Catherine Sterling Vance, effective immediately." A murmur rippled through the room. Victor Thorne scowled. "Transferring stock to your wife is a domestic matter, Damien. What does that have to do with the integrity of this company?" "It has everything to do with it." Catherine's voice cut through the room, sharp and clear. She placed a stack of documents on the table. "Legal counsel has confirmed that Damien's spending constituted a misappropriation of marital assets. I was well within my rights to file a lawsuit, freeze his assets, and drag this company into a very public, very ugly trial. But I am not here to burn the house down. I am here for accountability." She slid a thick, leather-bound contract toward the center of the table. "This is an amended postnuptial agreement. It clearly states that if Damien violates the morality clause again..." I instantly take 70% of his liquid assets and an additional 5% of his Vance voting shares. That is my guarantee to the board that his behavior will remain flawless. Victor sneered. Mrs. Vance, your marital drama is not boardroom business. You're mistaken, Victor. She fired back instantly. The mistress was a Vance employee. The hush money was funneled through Vance corporate cards. That makes it company business. Beatrice stopped thumbing her beads and spoke, her voice carrying the absolute weight of the Vance legacy. Catherine is right. Damien will face consequences. She looked at Victor. Victor, your motion for suspension, I support it. Damien will step down as CEO for a period of 30 days. He forfeits his annual executive bonus, and he will reimburse the corporate accounts from his personal funds. The transfer of his shares is his penance. The matter is resolved. Meeting adjourned, Catherine added softly. Not a single director, not even Victor Thorne, dared to argue with the two largest shareholders in the room. As the executives filed out, only Damien, Catherine, and Beatrice remained. Kate, Damien said, his voice raspy. I'm going to spend this month suing Ashley to get every cent back for extortion. When I come back, I'm going to prove to you that I deserve a second chance. Catherine didn't say a word. She just looked at him, her expression blank. Beatrice stood up and looped her arm through Catherine's. Come along, dear. In the private elevator down to the lobby, Beatrice looked at her daughter-in-law. Would you really have filed for divorce and gone nuclear? If he hadn't folded? Absolutely. Ruthless, Beatrice mused. But brilliant. The Vance family owes you a debt. Over the next week, the fallout continued. Vance Enterprises' stock dipped by 4%. Victor Thorne began anonymously leaking quotes to the Wall Street Journal, hinting at a crisis of leadership and quietly rallying shareholders. Victor's son, Ian, was spotted at exclusive Manhattan clubs, bragging that his family was about to execute a hostile takeover. Meanwhile, trapped in her depressing Ohio hometown, a desperate Ashley took to Twitter, posting vague threats about leaking trade secrets. Trying to be a tough guy, her brother Kyle actually posted a blurry photo of an internal Vance logistics contract to a local Facebook group, thinking it would somehow hurt the company. But Catherine wasn't sleeping. At the next scheduled board meeting, Catherine officially took a seat as an independent director, leveraging the combined 4% voting power of the Sterling family trusts. Her very first action as a board member was to initiate an aggressive internal audit regarding corporate leaks. Before Victor Thorne could even propose a vote of no confidence against Damien, Catherine dropped a massive dossier onto the table. It contained irrefutable proof that Victor Thorne had been illegally steering multi-million-dollar vendor contracts to a shell company owned by his son, Ian. Faced with federal fraud charges, Victor Thorne instantly resigned, completely neutered. When Catherine finally walked out of the Vance building that evening, Damien was waiting by her car, holding a massive bouquet of white roses. He had lost weight. He looked exhausted, humbled, but his eyes were clearer than they had been in years. I found my dad's old journals in the estate, Damien said quietly, staring at the pavement. I read them. I realized I was turning into the exact same piece of shit he was, I think. I think I was intimidated by how competent you are, Kate. I found some dumb, naive girl just so I could feel like the big, powerful man in the room. It was pathetic. I'm not asking for you to forgive me. I just need you to know that I finally see it. Catherine looked at him, then looked at the roses. Do you want to know what actually pissed me off the most? She asked evenly. What? That silk robe. It was a one-of-a-kind piece from Milan. I bought it specifically for you to take off me, and you let that trash roll around in it. Damien swallowed hard. I'm so sorry. I don't want apologies, Catherine said, stepping past him toward her driver. Just make sure you remember this lesson for the rest of your life. That evening, Catherine dined with Beatrice at the Greenwich estate. The staff opened a vintage bottle of Chateau Margaux. During the main course, Catherine's phone buzzed with a text from Sam. Nora Higgins, Ashley, was arrested by the FBI this afternoon for corporate espionage and extortion. Her brother Kyle is being interrogated. Due to the legal fees and local backlash, her parents' produce stand was foreclosed on by creditors. Catherine read the message, locked her phone, and placed it face down on the table. Damien, sitting quietly at the other end of the table, raised his wine glass. To you, Kate. She picked up her glass and silently clinked it against his. Outside the window, the lights of the city glowed in the distance. Just a month ago, she had been nothing more than a cheated-on wife. Today, she was a commanding board director holding the reins of a multi-billion-dollar corporate empire. She had been thrown into the meat grinder and walked out the undisputed victor. And from this day forward, no one in New York would ever dare to call Catherine Sterling weak.